Hello, friends, and welcome to today's session of the UWS Coffee Break series entitled, What's So Important About Leadership? My name is Jeff Mortimer, and I'm an adjunct instructor for the UWS Small Business Development Center. You know, it almost seems cliche when we say we're in an unprecedented times, but the truth of the matter is we really are. So many of us are looking for guidance, direction, and yes, leadership in this era of uncertainty. But rather than focus on our current challenges today, I'm going to talk about the subject of leadership. What is it? And why is it so important? How has it changed? Leadership is often mistaken with position, power, and authority. We're going to do a little bit of myth busting to kind of look at that. We're also going to focus on the need for everyday leadership versus situational leadership, as we've just mentioned. For most of us, we have all experienced leadership in some shape or form. Whether it's homeschooling your children, coaching a little league team, or leading corporate directives, you have most likely either been in a role of leadership or experienced the effect of leadership, good or bad. You may not even feel that leadership is in your wheelhouse, but I can almost assure you that at some point you're going to be thrust into everyday leadership role. So, I'm hoping that this session might touch you in some way, personally. Whether it's preparing for your next step into leadership or simply understanding the dynamic, synergy, and connection that leadership can afford. So fill up your mug. Join us for a short snapshot into a great big subject of leadership. I'm hoping you're going to come away with a deeper understanding of how leadership is so important. What is leadership? Great question. Lots of books written about it. We could go ad infinitum here. But leadership as we know it is a process by which an individual can direct, guide, and influence the behavior and work of others toward the accomplishment of a specific goal in a given situation. Pretty logical. Simple. Leadership is also the potential to influence the behavior of others. It's a little bit different. It's not a push, it's a pull, if you can think of it that way. It's also defined as the capacity to influence a group towards the realization of those specific goals. Leaders are also required to develop future visions, motivating organizational members to want to achieve and embrace those visions. Some of the characteristics that we look for in leadership is it's an inside job. It's an interpersonal process in which a leader, through their actions, are influencing and guiding workers. They're building value. They're creating inspiration and connection. Leadership demands a few qualities to be present in a person, which include, to name a few, intelligence, maturity, and character. This we're going to talk a little bit more about. It's also a group process, clearly, as it involves two or more people interacting with each other. Leadership, as we have mentioned, can also be situationally bound. There's not always a best way of leadership. It all depends upon tackling each situation and adjusting to the climate and the culture of the moment. Leadership's an important function of management as well, which helps to maximize efficiency and momentum. There's a connection there. There's a cohesion. I'm going to list but a few points of importance when considering leadership. Number one, it starts with initiation and action. A leader is a person who starts the work by communicating policies, procedures, and plans to the team from where the work actually begins. Next, motivation. A leader proves to be playing an incentive role in the group's working. He motivates employees with economic and non-economic intangibles and rewards, and thereby instills buy-in and cohesion. Guidance. A leader has to not only supervise, but play a guidance role on the team. Guidance here means instructing the team on how, and even sometimes why, to perform their work effectively and efficiently. Confidence. A leader instills confidence, explains roles, guidelines, and supporting those efforts to achieve outcomes. It's also important for a leader to be open, transparent, vulnerable to the individual's complaints, establishing clarity and addressing potential barriers that do arise. Building morale. Morale is achieved through connection and action. A leader can be a morale booster by achieving full cooperation so that they perform to the best of their abilities as they work towards those outcomes. A work environment. Clearly a biggie, and we've been in good and in tough work environments, I'm sure. An efficient work environment helps in sound and stable growth. Therefore, human relations should be top of mind for every leader. A leader should have personal contacts and touch bases with their employees. They should listen to the problems and work to solve them. He should treat each individual on his own personal code of humanitarian terms. And then finally, coordination. Coordination can be achieved through reconciling personal interests with organizational goals, bringing those together. This synchronization can be achieved through proper and effective communication and measurement. Some of the myths that we had talked about. Number one, position determines leadership. True leadership stems from influence. A true leader is in the trenches with the rest of the team. They're not only imparting guidance, but they're doing their part to move the organization forward. A leader isn't watching their team from 50 feet up or even with remote control, but they're working beside everyone else. They're observing to see where they can be most useful within their department. They're filling those gaps and completing the tasks in people's absence to ensure that momentum continues. Number two, leadership is synonymous with management. They kind of coalesce here, so there's no right or wrong answer to this, but management is task-based, where leadership is more based on inspiration. A leader is more of a visionary. They're focused on the big picture. And while many leaders do have certain management tasks in their job description, a successful leader, whose role also coalesces with management, helps people to feel valued and supported. Their team members don't just feel like cogs in a machine. The manager in this case helps them feel as if they're working toward a common goal. Acknowledgement. Leadership cannot be taught. This is a big one. Leaders are born and not made, in essence. That expression couldn't be further from the truth. While it's true that some people are natural-born leaders, in other words, they have that engagement, that drive, that type A, true leaders seek guidance, and they look to their leaders in certain situations. Someone who desires to be a leader has to pursue that role with patience, focus, and insight from leadership experts. Many people who are already in leadership roles seek to improve by attending seminars, looking at books, leadership training, and even going back to school. Successful companies are constantly evolving. And it's up to the leaders to avoid stagnation and complacency and have the ability to change, the agility to keep up with the ever-adjusting times. Leaders must be extroverted. While it's often the case that leaders do appear more outgoing and engaging, it's not always true. When comparing introverted versus extroverted, these terms are often used to describe how outgoing someone is. Extroversion being associated with gregariousness, talkativeness, and confidence, while introversion being synonymous with shy or withdrawn. These characteristics actually have more to do with how information is being processed. Extroverts tend to talk about things through, and they aren't afraid to seek others' guidance. They're there. Introverts, however, tend to process ideas and conflict. They look inside. They carefully consider their position more independently from others. Here's the takeaway. No one should feel that they're not cut out to be a leader. Pragmatically speaking, it'd be ideal to know what would be best for the company, depending on the situation. But the things to consider are how to inspire a team, how to build trust in them, and have the ability to generate enthusiasm and excitement. Always informing them, communicating on where the company is headed. Leaders should never rest on their laurels. They must always be seeking improvement and willingness to grow in their environment to stay relevant and respected. Some of the qualities of a leader, we look at vision and foresight. A leader cannot maintain influence unless they exhibit inspiration, vision, direction, navigation. Intelligence. A leader should be intelligent enough to examine problems in difficult situations. He should be able to analyze and weigh the pros and cons and then summarize the situation and generate momentum. Communication skills. The leader must be able to communicate the policies and procedures clearly, precisely, and effectively, multiple times if necessary. This is helpful in not only persuasion, but also inspiration. Self-confidence and willpower. Obviously, confidence in themselves is important, and the confidence of the subordinates. They should be trustworthy and handle situations with full willpower. Empathy. It's an old adage that stepping into the shoe of others. This is very important because judgment and objectivity comes only when this is practiced. A leader should understand the problems and complaints of employees and also have a complete view of the needs of the team. Emotional intelligence is a big subject, and we talk a lot about this in leadership. Current times are very dynamic, not just economically, but socially. Daniel Goleman names 4 particular metrics of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management and social skills. Know that a leader tends to have a huge influence on the thoughts and motivation of people. We've already talked about that. They have the capacity to ensure optimism and confidence, but the leaders are also observed in terms of their body language, their facial expressions, and nonverbal communication. A leader has to act as a role model, supporting his statements with ideologies and values with appropriate actions. So leadership, as you can see, has never been so important. I hope that in our short time we've been able to articulate the difference between authority, power, and position. You can see it's an inside job. Everyday leadership can be found at all levels, not just the top. It's about connection. It's about vision. It's transparency and showing up. And yes, it is sometimes about taking a risk. Leaders are not necessarily blessed with the DNA needed to lead. Rather, it's about the personal command and authenticity that people look for. Accidental leadership, if you will. It happens. So, if you're intrigued with this subject, I'd like to invite you to our Organizational Leadership Certificate coming up in 2021. I'm going to list here a link to some of the featured workshops in their descriptions, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it. 2021, on February 2nd through the 3rd, we're going to talk about the inner and the outer work of leadership. We've talked about the inside part of it, but there's the outer part of it of getting things done. We're going to discuss the definition of leadership as the activation of energy and the power of positively influencing others. We're going to discuss how to create space for others to act and how our skills will work to benefit others. March 3rd, we're going to focus on building trust. How can you build trust in an organizational setting? We're going to discuss the ingredients of trust: commitment, caring, consistency, and competence. We'll determine how to assess, earn, and request trust, various types of trust. How to build a culture of trust, so critical in moving things forward. April 7th, we're going to focus on effective communication. And when someone is speaking, are you listening? Are you taking in what they're saying? Or are you just listening to respond? In this workshop, we're going to learn about deep listening, giving and receiving feedback, defining clarity, expectations, communication styles, and assertiveness. You'll learn the types of communication that work best for you, working within order. So we talked about situational leadership. This is where this happens. On May 5th, strategic and adaptive leadership. Flexibility in being able to lead is a key to an organizational success. Having lateral ability is so key. And we'll cap it off with June 2nd, organizational change and culture. Organizational culture can be thought of as an invisible force that influences behavior and decision-making. It can make or break a change initiative. So whether you're currently in leadership or you're just interested in leadership, these are going to be great tools to add to your assemblage. Thank you for your time and for your interest. And in the words of Woodrow Wilson, consider this: you are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision and with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You're here to enrich the world and you impoverish yourself if you forget that errand. Thank you for your time.